Hello, thank you so much for coming along today. It is always a pleasure to have you here. If this is the first time you're joining my channel, thank you so much for coming along. I'm so excited to have you here. Maybe through Google search or maybe recommendation, referral, whatever way that you came along, I am so excited to have you here. It is an honor to have you here. And I would always encourage you to please click that subscribe button down there and click the notification bell so that anytime I release new content, you'll be the first person to get notification on that. You wouldn't be able to miss any of those contents. Okay. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Thank you for always trusting and coming back. Thank you for trusting me and thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. And whether you are a returning subscriber, whether you are a new person on my channel, please, I would encourage you to like, share, comment so that others will always benefit from this wonderful information. Isn't that amazing? Right? Awesome. All right. So as you can see on the title on the screen, we're going to talk about the analysis and explanation of the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto. I'm sure that perhaps you must have come across this wonderful document, but I'm going to share my screen very shortly. Most people have read it. A number of people have read it, interpreted in different way. What I am hoping to interact with you today is perhaps for us to look at it from the realistic point of view, from the practical point of view, okay? I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm just going to hit the nail on the head in terms of the most fundamental thing you should keep in mind, whether you are a practicing Scrum Master or potential Scrum Master. Maybe you are a manager in a Scrum team. You are looking for a way, the realistic and pragmatic relationship between this document and your projects. Okay, so I'm going to dissect, I'm going to dismantle. I'll try as much as I can to simplify. Okay, all right. So with that said, let's dive in right away without taking much of your time. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen right away. Now, when you go to this website, agilemanifesto.org, you'll be able to find this information as I am sharing my screen right now. One of the key things that got my attention when I first read this document was the first sentence here, like I have highlighted. It says, we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others to do it. When I read that, the first thing that came to my mind is research. Uncovering still that we are in the process. We have not, this is not like the final thing. This is still like an ongoing refinement, okay? It is more or less like a doctor who is already doing, like already practicing. They call it practicing medical professional. In other words, what that means is there is always a need to investigate, right? So this wonderful document, I'm not going to go into deeper on the historical foundation, but just on the high level, this document came about as a result of 17 software developers that met in Utah, in the United States, in February between 11th to 13th, 2001. As a result of the conversation that happened among these, high-profile guys, they came up with these important documents. Okay, we have the 12 Agile principles. We have the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto. For today, I'm going to help you guys to look at these 4 values from the pragmatic point of view. What does that really mean in reality, not in theory? Okay, we have theoretical, meaning of this document, but practically, like realistically, how does this apply? Another thing that got my attention reading this document is not about these, meta content. It's about the last sentence here. It says, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. So in other words, this has more context. This has more meaning. This gives more flesh, right? There is more emphasis on the items on the left than the items on the right. Now, what does that mean realistically? It means the shift from the old way of building software, that is waterfall, and the new way of building software, which is agile. Okay, so there is this paradigm shift. There is the need to meet up with the demand of the changing society. So, in other words, in the old way of working on a project, there are lots of things that have to go into processes and tools. People have to do some documentation, in fact, comprehensive. The contract is locked, right? As soon as the contract is signed and everything goes according to plan, right? So, but in Agile, there's always a continuous conversation between the customer and the end and the developers, right? So everything is not locked because we know that things can happen. Okay. So, and then the final thing I wanted to also flash my screen is the names of these software developers. As you can see here, you can go and do the research about these guys. They are amazing guys. The two most popular, which you must have heard, are Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sunderland. Perhaps that could be because of the Scrum Guide. Because I'm assuming that almost everybody must have read about the Scrum Guide, which is like the Bible of every Scrum Master and Agile coach. Make sense? Okay. So now that I've given you like an overview of the historical exegesis of how this document came about. Now, let's dive into the simplified, pragmatic, realistic explanation and analysis of how this document applies in real-time scenario. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, so now that you have gotten that background context, now let's get into the meat of what I'm trying to say or what I'm going to share with you. Now, the explanation. Individuals and interaction over processes and tools. I'm not going to, what you have on my screen is perhaps like a guideline so that you can follow through on the major key things I'm going to pinpoint tonight. Okay, so now the major thing I wanted to highlight here is about communication, individuals and interaction. As a Scrum Master, it is very, very important. In fact, it's one of your primary prerogatives to encourage team members to talk. I do remember the time I joined one of the organization I've worked in the past. My team members, nobody feels comfortable to join calls and put on cameras. People are always, putting off their cameras, right? So when I joined, I was so curious to find out why that was so. Even my supervisor wouldn't be able to say why that was so. Then I initiated the idea. Okay, guys, how about we put on the cameras on at least for once? It could be once a week. It could be once in 2 weeks, right? So there was some sort of resistance from my team members, but there was no harm in trial. So during our retrospect, we brought that as a discussion point, and they agreed for us to start off, putting cameras on for once a week. Remember, once a week. And after the first sprint, they became much more, I think that communication improved because when you are looking people eye to eye, it seems to get and capture people's attention. When cameras are off, remember, I'm just citing the use of cameras on as a talking point. It could be applied in different contexts. Okay, so when cameras are on, people tends to be much more attentive. But when cameras are off, people might be multitasking. They may do something else. Some people might be in the kitchen, especially when you're working in a remote setting. Okay, but when you are working in this, in a physical location, when team members are co-located, it's always a different thing. Instead of people working in silos, right? Encourage team members to work in pairs in such a way that drives off communication. It drives on communication there, right? So that encourages team dynamics. As a Scrum Master, always foster communication among the team members. Now, you might be asking, what about team members that are always mute? They don't always talk. Now, what I have done in that regard is to go a round table. Instead of me facilitating the daily Scrum, I encourage my team members to man it enough, facilitate, and then I will be there to provide support. This is a realistic thing that you could do. Okay? So this is one of the ways you can apply these individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Your team members might have different technology to enhance and they could use in this platform or environment, but be that as it may, whether they are using Azure DevOps, Jira, whatever technology they are using, encourage and foster communication. I've worked with team members that before I joined, they used to have their daily stand-up via email. All they need to do is just to send an update, and that is it. I mean, you could agree with me what could have happened in this situation. Information are lost. Sometimes you have information that are lost in the spam folder. Sometimes your emails are cluttered with a lot of updates, and then you will not be able to track and create transparency. All I needed to do at that point in time, or all I did, was to be able to shift that focus. We used Slack as a communication tool, right? And then we were able to use Jira to create transparency to track the work in progress. And then we used Microsoft Teams to be able to get on call to facilitate our daily scrum. Realistic explanation. Isn't that wonderful? Now, let's move forward. The second point talks about working software over comprehensive documentation. In waterfall, especially for people who are very much attuned with project management, in waterfall, the emphasis is always to give detailed step-by-step approach on how that software development must have gone. But in Agile, that is not the case. A number of people, you can agree with me, maybe you're also in the same shoe. When you buy a new device, do you take time to read all of those manuals from the first page to the last page? Or even when you are in an online platform and then all of those terms and conditions, most of the times people don't even read them and then they go and click accept, right? What does that mean? It means comprehensive documentation. That is a waterfall approach. Now, in Agile, what we are emphasizing here is that there must be value that you're always delivering to the customer each sprint on small by small formats. So as a Scrum Master, you have to keep in mind that the emphasis, one way to define success is each sprint is, do you have not just functionality like shippable or usable increments, but do you have a value to deliver? If yes, good. That aligns with working software. It is not about document. Document is important, don't get me wrong here, but the emphasis is, do you have value that you are shipping to your customer each sprint on a chunk by chunk format? If that is yes, then this is one way for you to apply this value. Now let's move forward here. The other one I wanted to touch on is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. In waterfall, the contract is always locked in. As far as that contract has been signed, it is impossible, if not difficult, to change the contract. But in Agile, there is this constant communication involving the customer, right? There is a constant discussion point between the customer and the developers. So the contract is very much flexible. There is always room for improvement on that, right? So as a Scrum Master, what I used to do is I used to get my customer or stakeholders involved in backlog refinements. Sometimes team members do have what is called task splitting. You start earlier enough to understand the requirement, especially when you're working in a very much complex environment. How are you involving your customer in your day-to-day activity? Start by getting them engaged in your backlog refinement, task splitting. Get them involved in such a way that developers begin to have a sense of what to work on. Believe me, when you get involved with customers, they would love it during the sprint review. Research has said, especially from my own personal experience, people want to be involved. People are always willing to offer their help and recommendation. Sometimes it depends on the approach. The final one is about responding to change over following a plan. Waterfall emphasizes this step-by-step approach. Before number 2 could be done, number 1 has to be completed, right? There is this idea of hierarchy, step-by-step, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, likewise. So now, but that is not the same in Agile. We live in a society where the change is always in a fluid, right? People are always changing their ideas or priority, whatever that could be. So how would you be able to manage it? One of the ways you can respond to change is, do you always have a buffer time in your sprint planning? I used to have a day or two additional time when I'm planning my sprint with my dev team. in such a way, if there is any change in between, you can use the buffer time. Sometimes team members might wake up in the morning and then they will be able to email you, hey, I'm not feeling too well. I'm going to take the days off. You didn't factor that in your sprint planning. What happens? Change. Sometimes in the middle of the sprint, the customer comes and says, oh, I would love to change. I don't want this in this sprint. In fact, I don't want this anymore. I have this new requirement. Can you be able to get this done in this current sprint? What would you do? When you have a buffer time, it will help you to be able to manage it. Isn't that amazing? We're going to stop here today. I know you might be wondering, okay, what else? How else can we be able to apply this in real-time scenario? All you need to do is, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section. If you've applied this manifesto in different contexts and it has worked, I would love to know your thoughts. If you're looking forward for a detailed more explanation, all you need to do is to reach out to me and let's have this more conversation on how you can apply this Agile Manifesto in a real-time situation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I always appreciate you listening to me for spending these 16 minutes listening to what I have to say concerning Agile and Scrum. Like I continue to say, I offer free mentorship and coaching section, whether you're looking for a mentor or a coach, you are new to Scrum, or you are thinking on how to transition. All you need is someone who can hold you by the hand and take you along. You have links up there. Email me, connect with me on my Instagram or Facebook, whatever social media platform you use, and let's have this conversation. All right? Instead of spending money out there to pay or whatever it is, reach out. There are free people that are willing to give you free service in terms of helping you to achieve your dream. All right, I'm going to stop here, but I am always looking forward to hear your thoughts. If you like this content, please click that like button, then comment and share. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, and I will see you again next episode. In the meantime, I hope you stay well. Bye for now.